I'm Abigail McGinnis, and I'm going to do my speech on Aileen Wuornos. This is my outline. These are my verbal citations. So before Aileen Wuornos, serial killers were exclusively men. The Encyclopedia of Capital Punishment in the U.S. called her the nation's first female serial killer. Today I'll be exploring the relevance of her upbringing and her life as a prostitute in South Florida as it pertains to her becoming a serial killer. So there are three main ideas about Aileen Wuornos that I'll discuss. I'll start by discussing her very early childhood, adoption, and teenage years. Then I'll move on to discuss her life as a prostitute, her repeated history of sexual assault, and her childhood pregnancy. And finally, I'll finish by informing you about the murders of 7 men at point-blank range between 1989 and 1990. Let me begin by telling you about Wuornos' early childhood and adoption. She was born to a 14-year-old mother and a 16-year-old father. She was abandoned by her mother at 4 years old and left with her maternal grandparents. She was told that her grandparents were her parents and that her aunts and uncles were her brothers and sisters. Her grandparents were both alcoholic and adopted her and her brother at 14. Her grandfather was extremely abusive. According to Lori Grody, who's a cousin of Aileen, he would take away her Christmas presents as soon as they arrived, and once he even drowned her pet cat and made her watch. Let's move on to discuss her life as a prostitute and young adult. As early as 11, Aileen was trading sex for cigarettes, food, drugs, and shelter. Wuornos said that her grandfather sexually assaulted and beat her, and at 14 she became pregnant, having been the victim of rape by one of her grandfather's friends. Wuornos' childhood best friend, Don Botkin, said, "The guy that raped her, he was about 60 years old, and he loved all the kids. Aileen was drunk, and he raped her, and that's how she got pregnant." She gave birth to a little boy in 1971, and he was placed for adoption. A few months later, her grandmother died of liver failure. Aileen dropped out of school, and then at 15, which was like a month later after she dropped out of school, she was thrown out of the house. She then lived in the woods and supported herself entirely through sex work. Finally, I'll finish by informing you about the murders of 7 men at point-blank range between 1989 and 1990. She had a long list of encounters with the police, including assault, reckless driving, DUI, theft. Eventually, the dangers of being a sex worker came into play when she was with a John and he sodomized and beat her. She had a weapon, she pulled it out and shot him 6 times at point-blank range and left him in the woods to die. Over the next 12 months, she shot 6 more men, and she claimed each one was the result of self-defense due to their attempts to rape and kill her. According to Wuornos in her 1992 trial, "I'm supposed to die because I'm a prostitute?" No, I don't think so. I was out prostituting, and I was dealing with hundreds and hundreds of guys. You got a jerk that's gonna come along and rape me, I'm gonna fight. I believe that everybody has a right to self-defend themselves. Wuornos was caught in 1990. Her girlfriend, to whom she remained loyal and in love to the day of her execution, agreed to coax a confession out of her in exchange for immunity from prosecution herself. And Aileen was executed in 2002 as the 10th woman to die in the U.S. by execution. I just told you aspects of Aileen Wuornos' life and capture. I started by giving you information on her childhood and trauma. Then I informed you about her life as a prostitute. And lastly, I gave you information about the killings of 7 men over a 7-month time period. 7 men over a 12-month time period. I can deal with that.